So golf is hard, really hard, and you're often faced with some difficult shots. But in this video, I've picked out what I consider to be the 4 hardest shots in golf, and I'm going to show you how you can master them. Okay, so this bunker shot, to that flag there, probably won't be that difficult. The lie's good, I've got a little bit of green to work with and not really that much of a lip. So this wouldn't be one of golf's hardest shots. But what about if that ball was severely plugged? You probably can't even see that golf ball now. And that's a different story. And we often get this when the sand is relatively soft, we're going in with a short iron, the ball tends to come down vertically, it plugs. Now, everything that you know about a bunker shot, you can throw that away because it kind of the rule book goes out the window. We have to play it very differently. The first thing I'm going to do is going to select the wedge that's got the most loft. For me, that's a 60 degree. Go in there, grab that club that's got more loft. We need height, and you'll see why in a moment. Now, normally when we play a bunker shot, we want the club to be skipping through the sand. We don't want that here. The bottom of the ball is significantly below the top level of the sand. So what we need the club to do is actually sort of hit the sand and continue to go down so we get underneath the golf ball. If we open the club face, so we expose the bounce, as soon as that club hits the sand, it wants to rise up and skip through the sand. So we want to be using the leading edge of the club. We don't really be wanting to use the bounce or the trailing edge. So in terms of my setup, I'm going to be putting the ball back of centre. So you can see here that that ball is a little closer to my trail foot. I'm going to have the handle forwards and I'm going to put my weight forwards. Now all of those things de-loft my golf club, which is why at the start we wanted to dive in there and grab the most amount of loft, because we have to take some loft off it in our setup. Now I'm still going to get my feet set in like I would for a normal bunker shot. That's going to be no different. And in the backswing, I'm going to be feeling that almost the first movement away is that my index finger and my thumb on my trail hand lift the club head upwards. That's almost going to be the first thing that I do. Now you'll notice that the lead arm is moving and the shoulders are turning, so there is other elements in there. But what I'm really trying to create here is a very steep upwards backswing, which allows me to then return the club very steep and downwards on the follow through. If we play this correctly, even though we've got 60, we're going to get a ball which comes out relatively low. So when I look at this flag here, I'm almost accepting I'm not going to be able to get the ball close. It's going to come out pretty low, it's going to land, and it's going to have very little backspin. It's almost going to have topspin. Therefore, it's going to roll, and I'll be very happy with something which is 15, 20 feet past. If after this shot, I can use my putter, I'm pretty happy. So let's go ahead and see if we can play it. My sole goal here is to work the club up and slam it into the sand some 2 to 3 inches behind the golf ball. Probably not going to have much of a follow through, and we're going to see that really low ball flight, but let's see if we can get something on the green and at least give myself a chance with the next club. And I would be very, very happy with that. You can see that very steep approach into the ball. It popped out, landed on the green. It's probably some 10 feet away. I'll be very, very happy with that. So that's how you play that really tricky plugged bunker shot. So I'm sure that you, most of the time, hit every fairway with a driver. But there are occasions where you do miss the fairway and you find yourself in a little bit of trouble. We need to be able to recover. And these are often really difficult shots because you can see the flag through those trees, hopefully. And for me to get this ball advanced down the fairway, I've got to lower the ball flight considerably, and I've got to turn it from right to left around that tree. So that's why these are really difficult, because there's 2 skills that we're tapping into. Can you change the trajectory, and can you change the curve? Now, when you're looking to change curve, club selection is everything. I've got myself a 7-iron here. If I was to play, let's say, a basic pitch out, I'm going to get a certain trajectory. If I wanted to hit a low hook, that's going to go much lower than if I wanted to hit a fade shot. When we fade the ball, we get higher flight. So for me, a 7-iron playing a low hook might mean that my 7-iron lofted impact is closer to that of a 5-iron. Whereas if I was trying to play a fade, I'd probably need a 4-iron to begin with, because when I have the face open, that increases the loft to maybe a 5-iron. So if I wanted a 5-iron trajectory, I'd have to use a 4-iron to fade it and a 7-iron to draw it. So you have to get the right club selection here. So I've got my 7. I don't need the loft of a 7, but you'll see why we're doing this in a moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shift that ball way back in my stance. How far back? How low do you want to hit it? If you want to hit it super low, get it super far back. So I'm going to go, you know, probably a club's width inside my trail heel. I'm going to have the handle forward and I'm going to put my weight forward, a good 65% of weight on that lead side. Straight away, what that setup has done, de-lofted that golf club. You can see my handle's forward, therefore there's less loft on that golf club. What that should do, give me a lower trajectory, help me keep it under those branches. What I'm going to do at impact is going to send it off even lower. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, if you look at my alignment here, I'm aiming way out to the right of this tree, almost into the kind of right-hand side of the fairway. The tree is on the other side. I want to be aiming away from the obstacle. I'm trying to curve it round. Now, through impact, what I'm going to be really trying to do is take my trail hand, which is my right hand, and have it feel like it climbs over the top of the club shaft and starts to point more down towards the ground through impact. If I do that with the club, it's going to cause the toe to overtake the heel, and that's going to do two things. It's going to close the face and de-loft the face. So there's another element in there which is causing the ball to head off lower. But the reason we're doing this is because we want that ball to have some curve to the left. What I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to swing my golf club way out to the right of that tree and have the club face closed to that path. If I can do that, I get that ball moving right to left. You're going to have to play around and experiment with how much you do that, depending on how much curve you want. But it's a really powerful shot to have in your bag because it means that when you are in trouble, like I am here, I don't just have to chip it or pitch it out 30 yards. I reckon I can get this ball around that corner, probably some 150 yards and back into play. Having said that, let's see if I can actually play it. So I'm aiming way out to the right. Ball is back in my stance. Weight is forward, and I'm going to get that right hand to climb over the shaft through impact. And hopefully, we'll get it hooking around that big tree. And that is perfect. I can just see it through that gap, and it's running down there, and I'll be absolutely loving that shot if it's on the golf course because I've advanced it a good distance when it looked like I was in quite a bit of trouble. So this one, so the flag behind me from this bunker is often considered the most difficult shot in golf. It's we'll call it a 60-yard bunker shot. So anything in that range of kind of 30 to 60 yards is incredibly difficult because if we play it like a regular greenside bunker, it's almost impossible to get the ball to go as far as we need it to. We can get it, you know, 15, 20, 30 yards, but it's hard to get it all the way back to that flag. So the 60 degree that I might use from a greenside bunker, we're going to put that away because it's really going to be quite difficult to hit the shot with that club. I'm actually going to go down to 52 degree for this shot. Now, pitch and wedge would also be a great option. What we're looking for is a lower ball flight, and we want the club to help us get the ball back to that flag. So lower loft is going to help. 52 here is going to be okay. Now, the traditional way of playing a greenside bunker shot is ball forward, face open, release the club past, but all those things really help us, number one, hit the sand before the ball. We don't really want to do that. And number two, it helps us get some height. Well, what we've kind of said is we want the ball to go forwards. We want to get it to go a little bit further. So we're actually going to get you to hit the ball first. We don't want to be taking the sand before the ball. And because of that, our setup needs to reflect it. So I'm actually going to place this golf ball maybe marginally back of my stance. Not a huge amount. I don't want to be too steep, but slightly back of center. I'm also then going to put a little bit more weight onto my front leg. So I'm feeling maybe 60, 65% of weight here. And because of those two things, the handle is going to be ahead of that club. So my 52 degree now has been de-lofted to probably something closer to 47, 48. It's obviously not an exact science. So that setup means that this ball is going to come out much lower. In terms of the motion, what I really want to do is I want to try and advance the ball forwards. Therefore, I'm going to feel like the hands and the club stay in line for a little bit longer through impact. I certainly don't want this movement here. That's going to be adding loft. As I've already said, great for height, not great for distance. And I almost want to be trying to, and this might seem a little strange, but I almost want to be trying to hit the ball from the bottom couple of grooves. A slight thin shot here should give me a fairly decent result. A heavy shot is going to give me a pretty poor result. So we want to be taking a little bit of sand, but I really want to be focusing on taking the ball cleanly without much sand before the ball, or without any sand before the ball. And the final thing before I hit this shot, manage your expectations. Anywhere on that green down there, give myself a putter as the next shot is absolutely fine. So manage your expectations. Don't always play towards the flag. and I will be absolutely over the moon with that shot. Very, very difficult shot, but you saw that lower ball flight, hit the ball first, took some sand, but I've given myself a great chance of getting up and down, and this is definitely one of the hardest shots in golf. So the situation that I found myself in here is definitely one that golfers really find difficult. It's ball below my feet, so the golf ball is lower than where I'm standing, and generally sloping lies give golfers issues, but this one, in my experience, is the one that really does affect people. To make things more difficult, 168 yards back to that flag, so not a short shot. So the club that's in my hands, which is the 8 iron, is the club that I would have hit for 180 yards. Sorry, 170 yards, it was 168 to the flag. So 170 yards is an 8 iron for me. But the ball being below my feet changes everything. So the 8 iron, that's going to go back in my bag, and I'm going to skip the 7, and I'm actually going to go for a 6, and we're going to explain why. So the first thing we have to do is look at what we can do to guarantee the strike. Now we have to get to that golf ball. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm using the full length of the club. You know, generally speaking, I'm going to have, let's say, an inch gap between my little finger and the end of the grip. I'm going to shift that right to the end. I still want to have control of the golf club, but I want to kind of make use of the full length of that golf club. Now, moving from an 8 past a 7 to a 6 obviously gives me a longer golf club. That helps me reach that golf ball. But we also have to think about what we can do in our posture to get down to that golf ball. So I'm going to have a fraction more knee flex, and I'm going to tip over a little bit from the upper body. How much you do that? Well, as you can imagine, that's quite difficult to say. It really depends on the severity of the slope. But ultimately, you just need to get yourself in a position where you feel like the club is resting on the ground, and that's relatively comfortable. To me, that feels like I'm more tipped over the golf ball, and I feel like there's more weight towards the balls of my feet. Now, anytime we increase the amount that we tilt over, we limit how much we can rotate. We stifle that rotation because we're more tilted over. So if I was to take an 8 iron and try and hit to that flag, I probably could get there, but I'd have to make a completely full swing. And what we've just said is the fact that I'm tilted over reduces my rotation. So what I would do with an 8 iron is I would make my backswing, and once I got to around about half to 3/4, to make my full swing, I would have to start lifting up out of my posture. That would allow me to make a full swing, but as you can imagine, I've increased the chances of me topping the ball, thinning the ball, having it scuttle along the ground, and potentially end up in that water. By using the 6, yes, we've got that longer club, but it encourages me to make a shorter swing, which means that I can stay in my posture for much longer. The last thing I want you to do is just think about where you're aiming. Just don't worry about the flag. If you can get this ball on the green or around the green, that's going to be a great result from here. Don't go flag hunting. It's not the position to do that from. And then before I'm going to hit it, I want to be standing right next to the golf ball as close as I can and making some relatively full speed practice swings. Why am I doing that? Well, you can see I'm starting to topple forwards. I need to know that. Because if I don't make those practice swings, when I step over and hit the shot, often that little off-balance maneuver feels uncomfortable, react, we back up, guess what? We top it. So once I've done those practice swings, and I now know that through the ball I'm going to feel like I'm falling over, that's fine. I can accept that, and I know that's going to happen. I'm not going to react to it, I should say, which can really compromise the strike. So, not worrying about the flag. The green is my goal. More knee flex, more tip over. I potentially will fall over after I hit this shot, but let's see if we can get it on the dance floor. Little loss of balance, but we are okay. It might have just trickled off the back of the green, but that was kind of how I planned it. So I'm putting, at worst I'm chipping, but from that situation, 170 yards over water, I've been pretty happy with that result.